update and also just a step back to look at our process in creating our co-requisites and the new guided self-placement here at Walla Walla Community College. And I'm going to start out, and then Jennifer Tony is going to share some of the placement data and work. I'm not going to go through these, but I just wanted to remind you that we have a lot of resources already available. We have an FAQ document in the advisor packet, which also links to an advisor guide PDF and a student guide PDF, math by pathway document, pathway by math document, and two recordings from the first two trainings. So those are in the advisor packet. Please access those as you need. So I wanted to share a little bit about our numbers. You may have noticed that our enrollment in math has been good. We had to add sections of courses for this fall. So just to give you an idea of where things are at, as of Saturday, we added early a standalone online Math 107, and then separated out the 107-037 students so that that could be a cohort, co-requisite pairing. We added a standalone Math 146 online, and we added another cohort 046, 146 online. That's just since we published the original listing in the spring. So that doesn't include our wait lists, and demand has been high. I think there are a few reasons for that. One is that more students are moving directly into college level classes. That's the premise, one of the major premises of this model is that you have students go directly into the college level math and provide the co-requisite support to help them be successful. Another reason is that we really rethought our placement process and used a lot of research to develop a placement that we feel better measures students' assets and allows more students to begin in college level math and increases the chance of success in that college level math course. So just briefly, to compare to fall of 2020, students in seats, well, we had 417 in our math courses in fall 2020, and this fall we had 465 as of Saturday, which is an 11.5% increase. I will also say one thing I didn't mention before is I do believe we've had some math delay during the pandemic. So I think there's more people needing to complete their math than a typical year. Math credit. So when we adjust for the fact that our co-requisite classes are only 3 credits, then we're looking at a smaller percent increase, 0.6%. So this math credit line is just saying, hey, it's not quite the same credit load in terms of, the college is always looking at FTEs. So that's measuring that credit change. College level, this is huge. So in fall 2020, we had 216 students in the college level classes. And this fall, we have 325 students in the college level classes, an increase of 50%. So those students aren't having to go through Math 75, Math 78, and then get to a college level class. They are starting right now at the college level with the appropriate support. So a huge change in that category. I mean, how many individual students are we talking about there? 80, over 100, 109? Pre-college level math, you see a decrease, which we expect. We're 30% down in pre-college level math, and that is just measuring people in those sections, not using the credit calculation. Carefully read footnotes when you're advising students into their classes. There are footnotes telling you which sections are linked to which support classes. So I've just put up an example of a cohort Math 146-046. Each of those has a footnote referring to the other. And it's important to keep in mind when you're talking with students that this is still 8 credits of math. The student has 2 math courses that are tightly connected, but we still want to prepare the students for 8 credits worth of coursework. So just kind of that mindset of, this is going to take some time, so plan for that. Commingle versus cohort. I talked about this in the previous sessions. It's been interesting as we see this develop. So just a reminder, cohort means same student, same instructor. You can blend content across the hours. Commingle means students in multiple sections, different instructor. Well, we had scheduled one commingle section with an 8:40 046, a 9:50 146, an 11 o'clock 146, and a 1:20 146. We had 0 students in the 1:20 146 who were in that support class. What I saw as students were registering is that they were registering back to back. They were registering in the 8:40 and the 9:50. And once that 9:50 filled, then we started seeing more people go into the 11 o'clock. So that's telling us in the future, we can change that. We can offer them back to back and do more cohorts in that sense, in terms of the student perspective. I will say also that since we designed this and made our schedule, there has been more research coming out about the value of the cohort model. And it's something that we need to consider as we move forward. That in particular with Black and Latinx Hispanic students, having that cohort, looking at data, it was advantageous to offer the cohort model. So it's something to keep in mind moving forward. Now I'm going to step back and talk about how we got here. So starting with questioning, it was interesting because, you know, we've always, in math, there's this history of, I don't know, decades and decades and decades of teaching Algebra 1, Algebra 2, the same course content, and often in the same ways. And so rethinking that in an entirely different way took some pioneering, I think, by a lot of different people. I was at a conference, I can't remember where this one was, and I remember the moment I was sitting in this session and the presenter said something to the effect that stated that offering pre-college math sequence, as we have been, is institutionalized racism. And I remember thinking, wow, that was, I mean, that really kind of hit me as a surprise and really got me thinking. Well, and this was a person out of California, and they've made a lot of changes in California. They had some state legislation that required some changes, but it really got me thinking and questioning. So once we start looking into our data and we start to look at, well, where do students start? And this is just a snapshot. What I did here is I pulled 3 years. So in our goal and our standards are to get students to college level math in 1 year. That's what we need to do. I gave them 3 years when I pulled this data just to see what would happen. And you can see I don't have more recent data because this takes 3 years. So you have to stop 3 years back. But you can see where students started. We're looking at, you know, low 40s for not enrolling in math in 3 years, low 30s for starting 2 or more levels below college level. So basically math 75 or lower. About a third of our students were starting there. Started 1 level below. You can see here, it looks like there's low numbers in that field, and then started in a college level course for about in the 20%. So you want to think about the quantity of students that are falling in these 3 categories over here. Did not enroll, started 2 or more levels below, or started 1 level below, when only, you know, about a quarter of our students are starting at college level. So are we helping students achieve their goals? Well, when you look at outcomes by placement, you can see here that starting 2 or more levels below, again, I've given students 3 years. Starting 2 or more levels below, you've got basically in the 30% chance of completing your college level course. So do we walk into a course 2 levels below, Math 75 basically, and say, hey, 2/3 of you, sorry, you're not going to make it through your college level course? Once you see these data and you realize that we are charging students money with this idea that they're going to get through a college level course, and we're offering what they need to be prepared for the college level course, I started to see that ethical side of it. Like, wait a second, can we continue to do this? Is this ethical? Are we giving students the support they need to be successful in their college level class, in their goals? Starting 1 level below, you can see where those numbers are, 61% up through 80% when you're there. And starting in a college level class, high 80%, low 90% for completing that college level course. We also then question, do we have institutional gaps visible by disaggregating data? So I pulled these statements directly from our College Spark grant proposal. And all 3 of these statements here are pointing to the fact that historically underrepresented students of color and low-income students who took math in their first year, so this isn't even the 3-year analysis, are trailing their peers in completing a college level math by 10 and 8 points respectively. Part of that is because of that previous data I showed you. You can see in this previous statement, the second one, 67% of historically underrepresented students of color take pre-college math, while 59% of their peers take pre-college math, and 69% of low-income students take pre-college math, while 54% of their peers take pre-college math. So you see those higher rates in the pre-college math, and you saw the pre-college data that pointed to students completing courses. So you can see how those 2 fit together. But when Joshua and I were in his office looking at this and putting together this grant proposal, we had a big question about at the college level, what's going on. And we weren't completely sure that just doing the co-requisites would close or eliminate our equity gaps, our institutional gaps. And that's where we brought in the culturally responsive teaching piece to try to move us toward eliminating those institutional gaps and work with all of our faculty teaching, whether pre-college or college level. So I mentioned, is our current approach ethical once you know the data? We're talking about money, debt, time, energy, dreams, and people's futures. So then we started studying the evidence, and it was very clear. Co-requisite remediation is doubling and tripling gateway college course success in half the time or better. And this is coming out of a Complete College America report from 2017. At the time we were developing the grant, more and more data, research reports were coming out, and the success of co-requisite models was becoming clearer all the time. We used all kinds of, I listed some of our resources here. There are so many more. So then we needed money. So thanks to Richard Middleton Kaplan, Janet Snell, and Joshua Slepin, who helped write this application for a College Spark grant, we were awarded $150,000. And our primary goals there were to increase the percentage of degree-seeking students completing college level math within 1 year. We were at 32%. That's what we've been at for students completing college level in 1 year, when you take into account all of those students. Get it up to 64% and eliminate equity gaps for low-income students and students of color. How are we going to do this? Well, full-scale co-requisite instruction. After knowing what we knew, it was hard to consider some sort of pilot and having people continue to take those sequential courses. Culturally responsive teaching. And then, interestingly enough, guided self-placement was not part of our grant proposal. We knew we were going to have to look at placement and figure out how to adapt placement for co-requisites, but guided self-placement came out of further meetings, research, collaboration with other schools. And so we managed to do that with those College Spark funds as well. And the thing is, this work takes time, a lot of time, but we were able to reassign some full-time faculty, and we were able to compensate some full-time faculty and part-time faculty with mode 5 hours. We have a lot we owe to others. I already mentioned studies and publications, so many. Statewide learning community, SBCTC, we've been working with other instructors, faculty across the state on this. And I've included this small graphic here just to point out that of our 34 colleges in Washington State, the CTCs, we have 12 colleges that are not engaged in co-requisite work, and 22 colleges are doing co-requisite classes or implementing some sort of co-requisite classes. Now, of that 22, there are 5 of us who have gone full scale. So some of the other colleges are doing work to, now that they've started some co-requisites, to get full scale. We've been at conferences, workshops, trainings, a lot of them. State and national. We've done them on co-requisites, placement, equity, active learning, all kinds of different topics. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Curtis Phillips and Kaylee Moyer, because I brought this with me, the book Think Again. There is a section on active learning that I just wanted to share because it's so critical with our students and with the co-requisites. This is on page 191, 192. Sorry, I'm going to put this up so you can see it closer. Think Again by Adam Grant. It says, a meta-analysis compared the effects of lecturing and active learning on students' mastery of the material, accumulating 225 studies with over 46,000 undergraduates in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. Active learning methods included group problem solving, worksheets, and tutorials. On average, students scored half a letter grade worse under traditional lecturing than through active learning, and students were 1.55 times more likely to fail in classes with traditional lecturing. The researchers estimate that if the students who failed in lecture courses had participated in active learning, more than $3.5 million in tuition could have been saved. The thing that's interesting also is that students tend to rate professors higher for lectures, but the studies show they actually retain more and perform better with active learning. And this wasn't a book we used as part of our redesign, but I did want to just give a shout out. Some folks have read it. Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond is a book that we've used. And we've talked about the warm demander sometimes in there, the warm demander as a teaching style, and Teaching Men of Color in the Community College by Wood, Harris, and White. There's some crossover definitely there, especially in regards to high expectations and authentic care in the classroom. In particular, wanted to share this quote from page 73. It says, faculty members must embrace an internal locus of control, believing that they possess the capacity to advance success for men of color and other disadvantaged student groups. Both of these books we've read. I'm not going to speak very much to them at all. And we're hoping to have further training in culturally responsive teaching, looking into some opportunities for STEM instructors through Escala. I don't know if any of you have heard of Escala, but that's one area we're looking into. Also, reaching out to other schools. We've been very grateful to Shoreline, Pierce, Spokane, Highline, and many more schools for sharing what they're doing with us. We've been scouring websites, outcomes, placement tools. I want to mention Yakima here, and another shout out to Pierce amongst many others. And so many of you, all of the math department, Erica, Mara, Lisa, so many of registration, placement, advising, Diana Herman, oh, thank you, and others in advising, guided pathways, financial aid, Maisie, thank you, and Tessa, deans, transitional studies, workforce, the president, all core campuses, science, especially Sarah Egbert and Ruth Russo and Chris Sorensen and Robin Green and computer science. We've got a lot of folks. I'm going to leave people out, but fire science, workforce, ag, equity, diversity, and inclusion, Margarita, institutional research with Joshua Slepin, and IT, Jack Carico and Tara, and more. TLC, we got our recommendation for the video we have in the placement from the TLC. So thank you. So Menica and Matt, accessibility, Debbie Evans, e-learning, payroll, especially Jessica Murph. Thank you, Jessica. Grants, Hispanic Caucus, arts and science. We have so many people. Arts and sciences, Laura Wooster, so many. I could go on and on. Tim Toon, Richard, of course. We've got a lot of people. Challenging, yes, it was challenging. It was not easy, but when you undergo a project like this, you have to keep the goal in mind. Student focus. We kept the students at front and center. How are we going to help the students succeed? And we're going to use evidence to do this. So it was all evidence-based and students focused. And we had some hard conversations because this affects enrollment, credits, staffing. It's not easy, but we have to keep those goals in mind. Dedicating, thank you all for your role in this. You've all played a role in advising students, asking questions, helping us make things better. Thank you. And timing. Timing was perfect. Since our work began, we continue to see more and more research and data supporting our changes. So I pulled just a few statements from a more recent Complete College America report that they're getting stronger and stronger in their recommendations. So you can see here, if our goal is to ensure every student succeeds, the co-requisite model needs to become the rule, not the exception. Co-requisite support offers a clear solution to addressing institutional performance gaps that disproportionately affect Black and Latinx students. Enrollment in college level gateway courses should be the default placement for all students. Support the advancement of student-centered and culturally responsive teaching practices that ensure all students are empowered and inspired by their course experience. So we really felt some, validation or sense of, look at this new report. This is what we've put into our project. So I am going to turn this over to Jennifer Toney at this point so she can share some information on placement.
All right, thanks, Julie. So as we went through this process and we're redesigning our classes, we knew that we needed students to be able to place into our new classes and our new levels. And so we examined the placement we had, our placement test, and just really felt like we couldn't make that work with going into our new classes, that just trying to redo the numbers on that test really wasn't fitting in with our model. And so we went to several placement trainings and just discussed this with other schools and other groups, and really decided to change our mindset towards placement to think about, rather than thinking about what students are missing to get into college level math, we started thinking about what assets do they have? What are students bringing to the table with past experience that they have, and maybe not classroom experience with math, but life experience with math. And so starting to think about how can we incorporate those things into our placement? So that was really a big mindset shift that happened for us in thinking about placement. So that led to us creating the guided self-placement. And we have had some questions about accessing our guided self-placement survey. And so I do want to say, I'm not going to go through a full training here on what the guided self-placement looks like for students and how to do it. We did do that in our training in the spring. So if you want to see it, I do have the page by page in those videos available in the advisor packet and on that website. So new students are going to be automatically sent an invitation to complete the guided self-placement after they submit an application. So we have our testing center taking care of that. And so that will happen on its own. But if we have any returning students who want to take guided self-placement, all they have to do is email testing or ask the advisor to email testing to request an invitation. It is as simple as that. There's no complicated process. They just need to be sent an invitation to open, and they can do that guided self-placement. if they have an old placement on file and feel like they need to redo that to get placed correctly into our new classes. So something we were able to add into our guided self-placement, that's a big part of it now, that wasn't available to show you when we did our last training, is the orientation video at the beginning. So while we have all of the processes in writing available for students, we also wanted to have it in video format for them. So I am going to share that with you right now, just so you can see a minute, less than a minute, of what it looks like. So we had a lot of help from Dominica in recording this video. And so I'm just going to play like 15 seconds of it for you. So students watch this before they move on in their guided self-placement.
The tool will let you know at the end in which level you should start. It is a self-placement tool, so it is important to answer the questions carefully because you don't want to end up in an incorrect math level. You can also answer the questions with your advisor, or you can do it by yourself. You need to enter your personal information. First name, in this case.
All right, so that's all I'm going to share of that video, but it's about an 8-minute long video that students watch. And so that directs them how to go through the whole process and walks them through and really tells them in that piece I showed you that they just need to be honest with their answers and as accurate as possible, and it will give them an appropriate placement. So I'm going to share with you now some of our results that we've been having from the guided self-placement. So we have had, as of today, 520 students take our guided self-placement, which I think is exciting. I'm going to show you a few of the data things that we are able to look at with this. So of those 520 students, we can see what coursework they're going to be completing. So you can see here we have most of our students are looking to complete a degree. We have a lot of Running Start students in here. And so this is just really great data that we can gather from our guided self-placement tool and be able to analyze and look back. So that is the great thing about this tool, is it is something that we can easily edit over time if we are looking at this data and feel like we can make it better. All right, I'm going to scroll down. I want to show you as well. We can see what students what math classes students need to take. And we can see that a majority of our students who are taking this are going to be going into statistics. That's our biggest slice. And then it's split up between all the other math courses we offer. But this is really going to help us moving forward with math enrollment and planning as well, to see what classes do we need to offer, what are our students mostly taking. And then we can also see where our students are coming from, because this is completely self-reported. So we can see what math class they took last in high school. And then also an interesting one to me was how long it's been since they took their last math class. So we can see right here, a majority of our students took their last math class in the last 2 years. But look at this, we have 35 who took math more than 10 years ago since coming to us. And then we've got 27 in the 6 to 10 year ago range. And previously, these were the students that were not served well by our old placement exam. These were probably students who mostly placed into the lower levels of our pre-college math because they hadn't been in a math class in so long. All right, so what students do if they are directed to one of our lists is they see a short list of math questions, and they do not have to answer these math questions. They just have to say yes or no. Do they think that they could answer the math question? It is something they've seen before. Even with a little bit of review, they're confident it's something that they could do. And so they're going through and doing that. And so we can see how they're answering on this. So we count their number of yeses. And so we are looking for what skills they have rather than what skills they don't. And then they're going to fall in a range. And you can see this is pretty evenly spaced between more yeses, and the smallest slice is the ones who knew the least. That's this 10% here for this list. And so this is really great for us in being able to analyze the questions themselves that we're asking, but then also what specific skills our students have. So that one is just interesting, maybe not for non-math people, but definitely for us in being able to evaluate how well this tool is working. So I want to show you one last thing on here about our placement. So we're going to look at this one. This is statistics. So what we're seeing here is number 104. These students were placed into Math 146, so statistics with the co-requisite support. And you can see that there's 65 students who placed here. And then look at this. This is Math 146 without the support. So the college level math, no support, 146 students. And so even between this 104 and 105, all of these students, this is over 200 students between these two groups, are starting in college level math. And we have a lot more that are in the college level only. What this tool does is it does give direct placement based on those transcripts that are less than 2 years ago. And we updated that direct placement. We went to see what the state was doing for direct placement and found that our previous multiple measures could be better in placing students into college level. So we updated that, but then we also are using those confidence lists for students that maybe it's been longer since they took math. And a lot of them are also ending up in the college level. But the great news there is that even ending up here in the college level with support, they still are starting in college level. Whereas before, many of these students would have been in Math 75. So there would have been 10 credits of math they would have needed to take to get to this college level. So that's been really exciting to be able to have students go through this process and see where they ended up. And we can follow these students now and see how they do moving forward now that we have this in place. One thing I didn't mention was the sense of belonging, and we collaborated with a lot of people across campus just on our word choice and everything within the self-placement to try to help students feel like they do belong here. You do belong in a college level math class. We are welcoming you to our campus so that the whole process is not intimidating to students or putting them off or making them feel like, sorry, you're here, but you have to start in pre-college math. You're not good enough for college level. So we really worked hard to redo that messaging to students to give them that sense of belonging.
I just put up here that we had an interview on Friday with, actually this is CCRC, Community College Research Center from Columbia University. And there were 7 of us that participated in this interview about the guided self-placement. So it was Jennifer Tony, myself, Erica Bachman, Mara Palumbo, Jeremiah Burt, Joshua Sleppen, and Nick Belusi. So that was kind of cool to take part in that. I can't tell you how great it has been to get your questions, your feedback, your comments, because it helps us make this better. It helps us try to figure out how we can get information out better, where we can post information. Just last week, we changed the guided self-placement to include better wording for ag students who need both 141 and 146. Try to make sure that if somehow by the time they're taking the placement, they don't recognize they need to test for 141 before 146, we have another catch to try to get those students. Mara's working on updating the placement website to make sure it's clear how students could request access for the guided self-placement tool. But these things are coming about based on your feedback, your questions, your comments. So we really appreciate it. Please don't feel bad about sending us comments. We want them because we want to make this better. And we need feedback from different perspectives to do that. So we really appreciate that feedback.